All right, good Wednesday evening, everyone. My name is Ed Piotrowski, the Chief Meteorologist here at ABC 15. Hope you're doing well. I know a lot of you picked up some substantial rainfall over the past 24 to 36 hours. Not to the levels that we once feared, which is a very, very good thing, but still some flooding, flash flooding is a real possibility as we head through tonight, especially inland. Remember, I've got Jenna Warner here, one of our great meteorologists. If you have any questions that are not answered in this Facebook Live, make sure you put them in the comments and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Keep in mind that if I answer those questions right now, we're not going to ask those questions again. So can you hear everything okay, Jenna?
No.
You cannot hear.
There's no sound.
Let me see. I think it is. Can you guys hear me or not?
We're working on it.
Okay, so I guess they can hear me. I'm going to ask the folks at home. Somebody comment and let me know if you can hear us. It may be that the computer you're on is not loud enough. They can't hear me at all, guys. I'm not sure what to tell you.
I can't hear anything. I have my sound all the way up.
I'm not sure what the issue is. So we have no audio right now, and we're not sure why. Lewis can hear me back there. Hang on, everybody. I wish I knew sign language. We know you can't hear me. We're working on it. Why does this happen? I mean, we can't get a Facebook Live to work correctly to save our lives. Hang on. We're working on the audio. I could do a dance. That's probably not going to entertain anybody. All right.
There's sound on the WPDE feed, but not on your Facebook feed.
Okay, we're going to have to, let's go ahead and kill this and we will be back. Let everybody know we're going to kill this one. Oh, you can hear me now? Okay, we're going to.
Yes.
Can you hear me? All right, folks, we're going to ask you, we apologize for the issues. Please comment if you guys can hear me now. All right, you can hear me now? Okay, so we can hear us now. All right, welcome. Let me start all over again. My name is Ed Piotrowski. I'm the Chief Meteorologist here at ABC 15. Thank you for your patience. We're still working through some issues when it comes to our Facebook Live, but hey, we're up in here now. So hopefully you're doing fine. What a day it's been. Substantial amounts of rain across the area. Thankfully, because of some dry air that got infiltrated into the system, it hasn't been as bad as we had feared a couple of days ago. And that's fantastic news. Not going to complain about that at all. With that said, check out these numbers so far. And I know in your neighborhood, it may be different. Literally a mile can make all the difference in the world between an inch or two of rain and 6 or 7 inches of rain. So please don't get mad at me if you don't agree with these rainfall totals. These are specific numbers that we got from some locations that we trust. And so here we go. Loris, over 9 inches of rain. Hemingway, over 8. Conway, over 7. We go down the list. You can see all the rainfall totals here. This is where the heaviest rain was during the course of the day and also last night. The rain has been slow to get in across the PD and on the border belt, but now it's really filling in. I'm going to show you the radar here in just a second. First of all, here's the very latest on Tropical Storm Debby. Winds in a very small area, likely out over the ocean at 60 miles per hour. I don't think we're going to see that kind of wind at all, especially with this system coming in south of us over Charleston County. It's only 25 miles off the coast, but it's only moving at about 3 miles per hour. So it may be another 6 to 7 hours before Debby actually does come ashore and then slowly move through eastern South Carolina as we head through time. All right, let's take a look at the tornado watch. We still have a tornado watch in effect until actually 11 p.m. for Horry County. The best dynamics for a tornado, though, are actually in southeastern North Carolina. So even though our threat is very, very low, we're going to keep a very close eye on the radar right on through the evening hours. Right now, it's all about the rainfall, and we've got widespread rainfall out there. There is an arc of very heavy rainfall from Marion and Mullins over toward Nichols, Lakeview, Dillon, extending into eastern Robeson County, back over toward Whiteville. Extremely heavy rainfall that is going over the same area, so flash flooding is a real concern in some of these locations. But notice over the coast, it's scattered downpours. All the widespread rain is farther inland. And I think that's where most of the widespread rain is going to be tonight. And here's the reason why. When you look at the track for Tropical Storm Debby, it's moving northward. And as it moves northward, it lifts the largest amounts of precipitation north and west as well. So that will stay away from the immediate coast. Now, that's not to say the Grand Strand's not going to see some downpours from time to time, but it's more scattered compared to many areas inland. And that's exactly what our futurecast is picking up. 8 o'clock, you can clearly see most of the rain is inland, scattered stuff along the coast. As we head toward midnight, showers and storms likely, and they could be extremely heavy at times across the PD and on the border belt. Occasionally, the heavy downpours rolling in off the ocean. As we head through overnight and toward tomorrow morning, again, the favorite areas for the heavy rain farther inland. But notice by 7 o'clock in the morning, with Debby lifting northward, it's beginning to push the very heavy rain north and west of our area, and that should happen during the morning hours tomorrow. Then for the rest of the day, as Debby slowly moves through the area, we will see scattered showers and storms. Some of those will produce heavy rain, but at least it will be scattered, not widespread, relentless rainfall like we're seeing across the PD and on the border belt tonight. So what does that mean in terms of rainfall? From 8 o'clock tonight to 8 o'clock tomorrow night, this is the forecast for total amounts of rain. This is on top of what we've already had. That's probably a better way to put it. Roughly 3 to 7 inches of rain across the PD and on the border belt, where all that heavy rain will likely be tonight. But along the Grand Strand, because it's scattered, not as much. Perhaps on the north end of the Strand, you could pick up another 3 or 4 inches. But the farther south you go, the lower the rain totals. Maybe an inch or two in Myrtle Beach, and even less than that as you head down to the south end of the Strand, including Garden City, Murrells Inlet, Pawleys Island, and down towards Georgetown. Some of you may not even get another inch because of the scattered nature of the rain. But keep in mind, with that heavy rain and saturated ground, any heavy rain in a short amount of time may lead to some flash flooding, especially inland. If you don't have to drive tonight or through tomorrow morning, that's a good idea not to do that. The flash flood risk is still high across the area, high to extreme for all of eastern South Carolina, and that will be the case right on through tomorrow morning. So how does this impact our rivers? There's no doubt the rivers are going to go up. Here are the latest numbers here. Most of them are not in flood stage, are near flood stage. Only one is actually in flood stage right now, and that is the Black Creek at Quinby. They all rise to moderate to even major flooding. Major flooding expected on the Little PD River at Gallivant's Ferry and the Lumber River at Nichols. But here's the most important thing. These rivers do not get anywhere near the levels we had with Hurricanes Matthew and Florence. All right, so take a good look at the forecast crest here. Like for instance, the Waccamaw River, 12.3 feet on Friday. Look at the record set with Hurricane Florence, 21.2 feet. So that's 9 feet lower than the record. And for a lot of these rivers, many feet below the records with the crests that are coming up this weekend and early next week. So river flooding is going to happen, but it's not going to be catastrophic like we've seen with some of these past hurricanes. So that's good news. Let's talk about the wind now. Winds are gusting in the 20s and 30s in many areas right now. Initially, when the center of Debby comes up into our area, the winds may actually go light for a little while, because in this particular case, it's not a truly tropical system. It's subtropical, meaning that the winds around the center and for a pretty large distance away from the center are fairly light. You got to get pretty far from the center to see the winds get kind of gusty. So the center may be pretty close to you and you're not having much wind, but the wind will pick up tonight. So what are we talking about? Here are the numbers. Overnight tonight, winds gusting between 35 and 45 miles per hour. That's going to be the case in the morning as well. By the afternoon, the winds will start to go down, gusting 25 to 35. And because Debby will be coming ashore just south of Georgetown, it's conceivable that we could have a wind gust of around 50 to 55 right on the beaches, but I don't see that happening anywhere else. So that's good news. Even wind at this magnitude is normally not capable of widespread damage and certainly not widespread power outages. Sure, with a very saturated ground, you get some wind gusts in the 40s to around 50. A couple of weak trees could come down, and that may cause isolated power outages. But again, no widespread damage and no widespread power outages expected in our area. So more good news for you. The storm surge watch that was in effect has been canceled. And that's because the storm surge unit at the National Hurricane Center, and that's a real deal, that's all they do is storm surge forecasting, was for 2 to 4 feet. And that requires a watch, but they've dropped it back to only 1 to 3 feet. So the watch has been canceled. And that basically means minor coastal flooding around high tide, which is coming up in just under 2 hours. And again, tomorrow morning at 10:55. I think the evening high tide on Thursday will not be an issue at all, because by then our winds are lighter and the wind is actually going to be offshore. So conditions will be better as we head through tomorrow afternoon, even though there will be some scattered downpours around. Even better on Friday with scattered showers and storms around, but really not related to the tropical system at all. And then by the weekend, we actually have normal weather around here for a change, back to your typical summertime weather. And I know a lot of people may be tuning in from other parts of the country, and a lot of folks wondering, can we come to the beach? So here's the bottom line with that. As long as we don't have extensive flooding and there's not a whole lot of residual flooding, you should be okay. But remember this, make sure you check with SCDOT or NCDOT if you want to know what the road conditions are like, to find out if any roads are closed because of flooding or road work, whatever it may be. Check those out as you travel southward or from west to east here to get here. Probably not going to see any of the major roads actually flooded out here, but it's something we'll be watching very carefully, and you can follow along by checking out the Department of Transportation's in North Carolina and of course South Carolina as well. So again, I'll apologize for the technical difficulties. It's just one of those things that happen from time to time. But a huge thank you to all of our wonderful folks here at WPDE, from our management to our newsroom, our folks that work all the digital stuff for us, and Jenna Warner, because she's sitting here looking at all your questions. So thank you all for everything you do. Let's let you guys ask some questions now. So Jenna, if you got some questions, let's hear them.
All right, first question, why didn't we see a lot of lightning with this storm?
You know, normally in what we call a warm core tropical system, that means the center is pretty warm. You don't have a whole lot of lightning. If you think about with thunderstorms, you have a lot of ice in the atmosphere, and that ice and water and friction can really cause a lot of lightning. That's why some storms are so prolific with lightning. But in hurricanes or tropical systems in general, they're warm core systems. There's not as much ice, so you don't see as much lightning as you do in the regular thunderstorms that we get each day.
Okay, next question. The Intracoastal, is it expected to flood, and how do the tides work with it?
Well, the tides do have an impact on the Intracoastal Waterway, and the Intracoastal Waterway pretty much goes as the Waccamaw River goes, so I don't expect significant flooding on the ICW, especially since we're not expecting outrageously high numbers on the Waccamaw River at Conway or up toward Longs either. I'm getting back to the radar just so you guys know.
All right. Moving off of that, when will the water moving down from North Carolina stream into our rivers?
That usually takes some time. I mean, they're going to get 4 to 8 inches of rain most likely from Charlotte to east of Greensboro and eastward. So some of that water is going to come our way. And as a lot of you know, it was extremely dry leading up to this particular event. I know we had several days where we had some pretty heavy rain inland, but by and large, when you compare our situation before this storm compared to before Hurricane Matthew, it was much wetter before Hurricane Matthew, and the rivers were much higher. So we've had a little bit of leeway, if you will, with all this water. That's why the rivers are not forecast to get to the levels they were at with Matthew or Florence. And of course, we're not going to see the similar amount of rainfall. At this point, it looks like the rainfall totals should come in, for the most part, lower than we had with both of those hurricanes.
All right, an interesting question here. So a hurricane spends its lifetime over water, it gains moisture, but does that hurricane dump salt water when it rains onto land?
It does not. When evaporation occurs, it evaporates the water, but the salt is actually left behind. Now, if you're on the beaches, the sea spray just from the water or the wind going over the water can pick up salt water, but it's not evaporated as salt water. It's just water evaporated, leaving the salt behind.
Okay, how does this all impact our area's drought?
Well, there's no doubt we're going to be out of the drought after this when you consider that we're going to get anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of rain total across the area. And there'll probably be some isolated amounts higher than that. That's pretty much going to erase the drought. I'd be shocked if we were in any drought after this, but they'll make that decision next Tuesday. They'll assess everything, and we'll get a new drought monitor coming out on Thursday. So a week from tomorrow, there will be one tomorrow, but that was all based on data from Tuesday before all the rain started. So next Tuesday is when they'll make their call in this particular situation, and then we'll get that a week from tomorrow, I should say.
Okay, so some are wondering when the tornado threat will end for parts of South Carolina and North Carolina.
So for Horry County, that's the only county in the watch right now, and that's until 11 o'clock. Like I said, the best dynamics or environmental conditions for a tornado, and they're pretty low overall, are in southeastern North Carolina. They're marginal here in Horry County, and that's why we're in that watch, just to be super safe. But everything we have seen so far that's been rolling in off the ocean has not been spinning at all. So I suspect, given the fact that we haven't had any warnings for a while now, that the watch will be allowed to expire at 11 p.m. And hopefully that'll be the case for southeastern North Carolina as well. But if it is going to be reissued, it's more likely there than here.
Moving off of that, if there is a tornado warning for any reason overnight tonight, will we be covering that at the station? Will someone be here?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We've got 2 people in the weather office at all times, 24/7 during a situation like this. So you can count on us to be here. And remember, you're not watching TV all night long. At least I hope you're not. So when you're asleep, you got to have a way to get a warning. And you can do that by making sure you have the WPDE weather app. You can go to the App Store and search WPDE WX, and you can download the Weather Authority app. Make sure you have locations and notifications on, and if your particular neighborhood gets a warning, the alarm will go off and wake you up, and that'll be your cue to turn on the TV or stream us online to get the information that you need.
Okay, next question. Could Debby make landfall as a hurricane?
It is highly unlikely. Based on everything we have seen, there's really no thunderstorm activity around the center. It's a very disorganized system, even though it got a little stronger today. It's more of a subtropical system. You know, normally in a tropical storm or hurricane, the highest winds are packed right around the center. In this particular case, there's a very large area of light winds, and the higher wind gusts have been southeast and northeast of the center, and in some cases over 100 miles away. So that would really have to tighten up in a very short amount of time for this to become a hurricane, and that's not how hurricanes work. Even when they are rapidly intensifying in pristine conditions, it still takes a while for them to intensify. So I don't see that happening, and I hope I don't eat my words on that, but I just don't see that happening because it is getting closer to the coast now.
Okay, bouncing off of that one, why doesn't Debby or does the storm have an eye wall?
In this case, it has no eye wall at all. In fact, it doesn't even have any thunderstorm activity around the center. And the primary reason for that, and quite frankly, what has saved us from having a much larger, more catastrophic rain event, is the fact that when Debby was coming over near Savannah and was heading slowly out to sea, and just before that, it began to wrap in very dry air off the land into its center. And so what that did is it ate up a lot of the moisture. It evaporated because of how dry the air was, and that really helped to cut down on the rainfall totals. And instead of 20 to 30 inches down near Charleston, I think the highest I saw was 18 or 19. Which is all relative. That's still a tremendous amount of rain that causes catastrophic damage, just not over an extremely large area. So for us, we never thought we were going to see 20 to 30 inches of rain, but 12 to 16 was on the table. It looks like we're going to come in under that, which is a good thing, but still a substantial amount of rain that can lead to flash flooding and some issues.
Okay, why don't we know where Debby will make landfall exactly?
Well, we're pretty confident it's going to make landfall in Charleston County or southern Georgetown County. I mean, we're talking just 5 or 10 miles different probably at this point in time. So in weather, that's a pretty darn good idea of where it's going to actually come ashore. When you get beyond, a day or 2 or 3, different forces in the atmosphere can bump things a little left or right. That's why that cone of uncertainty gets larger over time, because the average error gets larger over time as well.
Will Debby stall as it moves north out of our area? Not
anymore. There was a chance, for a while where it was just meandering out there. Now it's definitively moving to the north, and what that tells us is the high pressure out off of New England is exerting its influences on it now, which is now forcing it northward, and it will slowly pick up a little more speed as we head through tonight and tomorrow. Landfall tonight around 2 a.m. By 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it's likely in the northern parts of our area, and by 2 a.m. on Friday, it's already in northern North Carolina, and then accelerates out to the north and east. Parts of the Mid-Atlantic and New England states are going to get some very heavy rainfall toward the end of the week and the first part of the weekend from the remnants of Debby.
Okay, do we have any power outages that we've seen in our area from the storm?
I haven't seen any. I checked about an hour ago. I hadn't seen any, and it looks like the chances of that are pretty small. Can't say zero, but it's not going to be widespread.
Okay, moving on. Is there anything that we should be watching in the tropics beyond Debby right now?
So there was a wave that was kind of cruising through the Caribbean Sea. Its chances of developing now are less than 10% as it heads toward the Yucatan Peninsula. The forecast models are signaling that a disturbance coming off the African coast in about a week has a chance of developing out near the Lesser Antilles And, you know, some of the forecast models show it developing and being near the Bahamas a week from Saturday. That's a long way off. We're not going to worry about that right now. Let's get through this system first. Everybody catch a nice break and enjoy the weekend. And if that's something we need to be concerned about, of course, we'll make sure and let you know, and we'll keep you updated for sure if it ever becomes a concern.
Okay, we have several people commenting that as we're seeing rainfall move through parts of Lee and Sumter counties, that the sky is turning yellow. I'm going to guess that it's from the sun setting. Yeah,
I would imagine there's all sorts of optics can occur when you have varying levels of cloud cover and a setting sun and, you know, lights reflecting, but that has nothing to do per se with the dynamics of a hurricane, so or that there's a tornado or hail or anything like that. It's just the optics in the atmosphere.
All right, this is a question about the rivers in the area. Why are they low right now, but they're moving up as we head into the weekend?
Well, all this water is going to drain into the rivers eventually, so they have nowhere to go but up. And of course, some of the water eventually comes from North Carolina. It takes time for that water to come through our river system and then eventually exit out Winyah Bay. And that's a pretty slow process overall, because in terms of elevation, we don't have a lot across our viewing area. The Waccamaw is the slowest moving river in our area because it literally parallels the coast, so there's nothing to really push it. The Great Pee and the Little Pee River, relatively speaking, do move faster. Same with the Black River and the Lynches River, because there is elevation across the PD compared to down along the Grand Strand. So there's a steeper decline, if you will, for that water to follow. And what happens a lot of times in our massive flood events is that water rushes toward Winyah Bay, and that force alone will back up the Waccamaw River, causing more flooding on the Waccamaw River. Again, we don't see that happening in this case. All the rivers are coming up, but they will not get to the levels of Matthew or Florence.
Okay, I think this will be the last question, unless something compelling pops up in chat. Is there any advice you can give to people that have to be on the roadways for any reason in all of this flooding and rain?
Be super careful. Make sure your low beams are on. Make sure your windshield wipers work, of course, and don't hesitate to slow down. That's very important. And remember this too, if you see water rushing across the roadway, do not try to get across it. It only takes 6 inches of water to float your car. And if that water happens to be moving fast, you could be swept off the roadway, and unfortunately bad things can happen. You can only imagine if your car gets turned over and you're stuck inside. Don't go across any flooded roadways at all, and just use extreme caution. If you have some leeway, take a look at the radar on the WPDE weather app. Look at that and see if the heavy rain is going to continue or if it's going to move on, because in our app we also have a future radar, give you an idea of where the rain is actually going to go.
All right, well, I think that wraps up our questions.
All right. Well, folks, stay dry out there. Please be careful if you have to travel. Again, things will be getting better as we head through tomorrow. Most of this is tonight into tomorrow morning with the most widespread rain, and the best chances of any flash flooding tonight will be across